All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. This is Conversation Design Best Practices for Enterprise Customer Support. My name is Greg Bennett, and I'm Conversation Design Principal at Salesforce, where I founded and lead the conversation design practice for our company. Today, I'm going to cover basically what are the best practices that I have found to be extremely useful in designing a conversation that is natural and helpful for users, particularly at the enterprise level for the customer support use case. My academic background is in linguistics, so I'm particularly nerdy about all things conversation, especially conversation through text. For those of you who don't know me, my sort of intro into linguistics was really through an online breakup where someone actually broke up with me over IM chat, and I knew it was coming. And that was how I essentially realized, okay, if I can understand through linguistics how I was able to feel the distance, feel the sort of coldness that was coming through chat, then we can understand what sort of language mechanisms make that possible. Since then, I've taken those findings and transformed them into design techniques, whereby if we know which language aspects to essentially, manipulate or enhance or leverage to be able to affect a relationship meaning or relationship signal to the other user without our face, without our voice, without our body, we can essentially create a conversation that extends that kind of conversational style, system persona, and even empathy toward customers. Before we begin, these are Salesforce's forward-looking statements. All of this text basically alludes to the fact that Salesforce is a publicly traded company, and anything that I show or discuss with you today may never see release. So please make all your purchasing decisions based on the product as it exists on the market today. So in addition to being a linguist, I am a total nerd. And like any nerd, I have a favorite cartoon, and that cartoon is Dragon Ball Z. Some of you may know this cartoon. It's a really famous fighting cartoon from Japan. And I grew up watching this cartoon every afternoon after school in my grandmother's house. And as a grown-up nerd, essentially I have taken to showing my fandom in other ways, which includes in chat. If you can see my camera, I also have a little figurine here by my desk, so I'm not just making this up. I am a huge fan of Dragon Ball. And I was able to discover in a chat app that I was using that there are these really ornate stickers for Dragon Ball that you can send that take over the whole screen and communicate additional meaning, whether that's okay, no, bye-bye, or whatever, to other users. And as soon as I found out about these stickers, I had to have them. So I fired up a chat with the chat apps bot once I realized, okay, yes, I have to have these stickers. And what I figured was pretty easy. Rather than trying to use the search function to find these stickers, I thought, okay, given that I'm relatively new to the app, let's use the chat bot and figure out where are these sticker packs. So I say where the sticker packs, and the app chatbot responds with, hey friend, have you checked out this week's new sticker packs? We're super excited to share them with you. Check out the free stickers. All right, so it was able to at least pick apart the fact that I'm looking for stickers. So I'm like, all right, there's some entity recognition there, but it's not totally what I'm looking for. So I repeat myself. I say, no, I want the Dragon Ball sticker packs because I'm trying to constrain that a little bit more. I want a specific set of sticker packs. In conversation, when you repeat yourself, it's ultimately for the sake of the fact that it didn't get the message or the intent didn't necessarily get across the first time. That also creates a sense of emphasis. I figure, okay, I'm repeating myself here. The bot will understand this. Not so much. Hey, friend, have you checked out this week's new sticker packs? All right, so now I'm starting to get a little frustrated. At this point, I indicate my frustration with ugh, and it responds with, hey friend, have you checked out this week's new sticker packs? All right, so this is not the best experience. Ultimately, it became very clear that the bot's capability to respond to my specific service request was not capable in doing so. And really what this sort of boils down to is trust. So at Salesforce, trust is our #1 value. And you can't really, expect to build a proper relationship with a customer or maintain a customer relationship without that level of trust. And the issue with this is that because of the bot's robotic performance and its inability to really sort of, cater to my needs conversationally, it damages my trust in the brand that is offering the bot. And that's not good. Studies have shown that 70% of users would not use a company's bot again after a bad experience. This was conducted in the United States. Of those same survey participants, 60% found bots robotic and artificial in their responses. And I think this is particularly salient to note. These, as a researcher by training, I cannot say that correlation and causation are the same thing. But I will say that even independently, it's important for us to consider these stats. If 70% of participants wouldn't use a bot again after, a bad experience, that essentially shows us we don't really have that many chances at getting this right. We have one shot at building customer trust. And if they have a bad experience, it's essentially uphill trying to rebuild that from there. If they also find bots robotic and artificial in their responses, we can see that that is a potential vector that we should examine in order to make the experience more trustworthy. So, rather than saying they're necessarily the same thing, they don't necessarily equate each other, I think it's important to consider them equally. So ultimately, our goal is to create a situation and trustworthy. And through linguistics, we can actually begin to do that. Luckily, there's been decades of research in linguistics and particularly sociolinguistics discourse analysis that have shown us the structure of conversation, particularly the structure of a customer service conversation. So customer service conversation was essentially the phenomenon, if you will, that opened the door to the field of conversation analysis, whereby sociologists and later linguists were able to discover that, things like customer service conversation, the words might be different and the pace might be different, but the structure and the arc of the conversation is the same. You start with some kind of opening, a hello, you get into the body of the conversation, which usually involves turn taking, where the customer or the service agent or whomever the person is providing service asks, how can I help you? The customer makes a request, the agent responds, there's some kind of thank you, usually from the customer, and then the closing, goodbye. When we have this structure, it at least gives us a blueprint. So the way I like to think about it is, you could either write on a blank sheet of paper, or you could fill in the sort of different pieces of the outline if you have the outline available to you. Well, here's our outline, and here's how we go about structuring a customer service engagement essentially to fit the way that humans do it. And that's not to say that we're trying to make the bot more human, but rather we're trying to make sure that the bot, which is essentially engaging in a fundamentally and quintessentially human practice conversation, we want to make sure that the bot adheres to human expectations of that practice. So what I'm going to dive into now is what I call the top 10, which are the top 10 steps to build a natural, helpful bot dialogue for customer support. And each one of these are based on what we know from linguistics to help structure the kind of conversation that would fit that template or that arc for customer support conversation. And what I'm going to do is show us in the Einstein Bot Builder, which is Salesforce's chatbot builder platform, how we can go about doing this. Step number one, the bot introduces itself as a bot. So nothing hampers trust more than lying to someone. If you lie to someone, then suddenly that that other person realizes that, no, I can't really believe what this person says. So if the bot either fails to acknowledge that it is not human, or actively tries to put one over on the user and make it seem like it's human when it's not, that's the easiest way to lose the customer's trust. So make sure that you tell the user in the opening turn of the chat, hi, I'm such and such bot. a chatbot that is here to help you, etc. Some form of that, but something that makes it very clear for the user, hey, I'm talking to a machine. And for those who might say, oh, well, we know that users don't necessarily tend to read everything, so what's the point? My sort of response to that is this. Even if the user doesn't read it in the opening turn, they can always scroll back because of the transcript and see that it's there. It's much better that the user realize, oh, I simply missed it and I'm talking with a bot. Hey, this is actually a pretty good experience. That could actually result in a moment of delight, rather than they scroll up and find out, oh, actually, you know what? They said they're a bot when they're, or they said they're human when they're not. They're actually a bot, and this is gross. You want to avoid the latter. So introduce the bot as a bot. Then the bot should give some idea of what it can do to the customer. Again, back to that whole idea of like a blank piece of paper versus some kind of outline. A blank piece of paper requires a lot of cognitive load because it means that the whole world of possibilities is available to the user to do. When you're talking about a chatbot that potentially hasn't been fully trained with its NLP model, that actually oversets expectations, and you're already setting yourself up as the enterprise to essentially be set up for failure. You could never possibly meet all those expectations with a bot, no matter how much training you do. And one of our customers actually did a study where they found that users were very apprehensive and anxious about trying to find the words to trigger the bot to do what it really, what they really wanted it to do. And one way you can help essentially mitigate that is by providing guardrails. Hey, here's some examples. The objective of this is not to state absolutely everything that the bot can do, but to give some examples so that way the user can either say, all right, like I have an idea of what it can do for me, and then I'll respond, maybe I want something different, or, oh, actually what you're providing me is, one of those things is what I want to accomplish in this conversation, so let's select it. The bot should also understand various ways of phrasing things. So variation is a very inherent part of communication and conversation. We don't ever say the same thing the same way in every conversation. So the example here is hello, hi, heya, howdy. For those of you who are first language English speakers, this might be super familiar to you in terms of the nuance and how this is different. It's the kind of thing where, regardless of whether the language is English or your own first language, there is absolutely more than one way to say the same thing using potentially different words or different phrases. And so it's important for the bot to be able to understand the breadth of that. If I say hello to a bot and it's able to respond, but then I say hi or hey to a bot, the following day or even the following hour, and the bot says, I'm sorry, I can't understand, that's robotic. It needs to be able to handle that kind of variation. All right, so what we're looking at here is the Einstein bot builder, and we're looking at a pizza bot that we've set up for the sake of this demonstration. What we're looking at the moment is essentially when you land into your single bot that you have created in the bot builder, and this is the dialogue composer. So what we see on the left-hand side is the list of all the dialogues that you have and all of the names of the dialogues, any dialogues that have been nested within each other. In the middle, we have the composer where you can create the utterances themselves that the bot says to the user. And then on the left-hand side, we have the preview panel where you can actually see what the user would see. And so what we have here is, hi, I'm Astro, your pizza ordering bot, whereby users can order pizza. If you want the bot to be able to understand different ways of saying things, for a greeting in this case, we have put in all the different kind of customer inputs that are needed in order to understand that greeting. In order to provide the user options, this is our main menu. How might I help you? Here are all the different types of things that we could provide. Step number 4, the bot takes turns with the user. So turn taking is at the core of what conversation is all about. If only one person is talking, it's not a conversation. It's a presentation like I'm giving now, or a monologue in a play or something like that. In order for conversation to be conversation, there has to be at least 2 participants, both of whom are exchanging language back and forth. And without that exchange, conversation isn't possible. So I think that's a really important thing to consider, even as you're considering whether or not to use a bot, a chatbot, or conversational AI for a solution for your enterprise, particularly for customer support. I think the first thing really to ask yourself is, does turn taking fit or enhance or really help the need at hand for the customer? When it comes to something like trying to order a pizza, for example, and determine, okay, how many pizzas do you want to eat in a week and what kind of toppings do you enjoy, that actually really lends itself well to turn taking, because sure, you could fill out a form online with these questions, but this is also the opportunity for you as a company to extend to your users your sense of brand personality through language. And so in this case, you want to make sure to create those turns and develop a sense of turn taking to encourage that. The bot should also leave time for the user to read what it says. So I have two examples here. The one on top, I'm calling the bad example because there's absolutely no pause between when the bot sends messages to the user. And so essentially it's just this wall of text. On the bottom is the good example, whereby there you see the three ellipses and they're kind of just hovering, and there's a pause between each utterance that the bot transmits to the user. The reason why this is important is because, again, with turn taking, there's a cadence, there's a pace to the conversation. And there's nothing more artificial than if the cadence or the pace is 0 seconds, because then it becomes very clear, okay, this is just rushing me along at best, and at worst, potentially overwhelming me as a user, because now it's all this text, this information, potentially a picture. I have to scroll back and read everything. I could have just loaded a web page to read this. I don't need to get all of this transmitted to me piece by piece. Whereas with the ellipses, it gives the eye time to read and consume and understand what is being transmitted in the conversation. It creates that pace, that cadence. And what we found in research several years ago, I did field work with a colleague of mine in the Philippines, in Manila, in a contact center that primarily used chat. And what I found was, in my observations, was that the shortest pause that an agent took in responding to chat was 4 seconds long. Let's count that, 4 seconds long. 1, 2, 3, 4. When you actually count it out, it's quite long. And so in order to kind of hit that sweet spot of, well, we want to be more efficient in conversation than say 4 seconds that you would necessarily perhaps have with an agent, but we also don't want to be super artificial and make it 0 seconds. We should shoot for somewhere in the middle. And we ended up at about 1.2 seconds as the default for what we encourage in the Einstein Bot Builder. So let's take a look at how this works. We're looking at the Einstein Bot Builder for creating a pizza dialogue. We want to create a recurring order. We're creating a turn-taking sequence. So we're going to ask a question: how many pizzas would you like? And then in order to make this possible, we create an entity in this, or rather in this case, we're going to select an entity. This is for a number entity, and then save it to the variable pizzas recurring. So yes, we have to recognize this is a number, but this is specifically for understanding how often, or the recurring order of the pizza. 1, 2, 3, 4 are choices. All right, then we're going to ask another question. How often would you like to reorder? Okay, so we're going to save this again to a variable, an entity. In this case, it's text. And we are going to go with a reorder cadence variable where we know what the cadence is to reorder: once a week, twice a week, and we'll leave it at that. All right. Now, once we have this information, we've collected it from the user, we're going to confirm it and make sure, okay, I've got these variables correct. I will reorder, and we're going to use merge syntax in Salesforce to be able to pull that number from the previous question, pizzas recurring. And then we're going to use merge syntax again to pull that number to get the reordering cadence. Thanks for your order. All right. So we've saved this dialog. This dialog has been updated successfully. We want to see what the user sees. So we're going to submit this. Hi, I'm Astro, your pizza ordering bot. How may I help you? I want to make a recurring order. Okay, you'd like to place a recurring order. How many pizzas would you like? 4. I like a lot of pizza. How often would you like to reorder? Twice a week, because it's a pandemic and I need to survive. Great, I will reorder 4 pizzas twice a week. Thanks for your order. There you have it. We don't have to do very much in order to create that turn-taking structure. We're able to confirm this with the user quite easily. Now to that cadence in terms of trying to, essentially create the pause, the pacing structure of the conversation. Like I said, we have a feature in the Einstein bot builder called the bot response delay. And in that bot response delay, you can either select the default best delay time, which is set at 1.2 seconds, or you can customize it all the way up to 3 seconds. But what we do not suggest is setting it at 0 seconds. So if you select the best delay time, it's set at that default of 1.2 seconds, which is based on the research we conducted in Manila. All right, step number 6, bot interprets multiple pieces of information at once. So when we're speaking in conversation, we don't necessarily always communicate one idea per utterance. Oftentimes we'll have these sort of compound utterances whereby you get multiple ideas at once. So the example that we have here is, I'm Astro and I live in San Francisco. Astro is not saying, I'm Astro, I live in San Francisco. We don't necessarily, again, separate every idea per utterance. And so it's going to be important that when we have multiple ideas in one utterance, in this case, multiple entities, the person identity and the location, perhaps, geo, that we're going to want to be able to capture those from one single utterance. So the way that we do this is, again, in Einstein Bot Builder, okay, you would like to place a recurring order. How many pizzas would you like? How often? This is actually going to be native into the Einstein Bot Builder. It's called named entity recognition, or NER, whereby it's going to be able to pull these entities once we've defined them in the variables that we did already. So now if I just type into the Einstein Bot Builder, I want to set up a recurring order for 4 pizzas twice a week. It's going to recognize those entities and then skip over all that part in the dialogue, because in conversation, you wouldn't need to necessarily go through all of that again if you just said it. So great, I'll reorder 4 pizzas twice a week. Thanks for your order. The bot apologizes when it can't do something. So apologies and managing apologies are a very quintessential piece of service conversation. Think about a time when maybe, we're all essentially working from home in the United States, potentially in the country that you're from as well. Or the city that you're from, town you're from, that might also be the case, that you're potentially working from home. We've seen globally customer service requests are spiking as a result of this, this change in lifestyle for many of us. And so, as a result of these, proliferated customer service cases, that, potentially if someone has an issue, then, the company would like to express regret that the customer is having issue. And customers also expect some level of that. I remember once I was having, I think it was brunch in San Francisco at a restaurant, and I found a hair in my food, and it was very gross. And so I told the staff, hey, something's wrong with my food. And the staff person was really disgruntled, and he took it away and was just very upset at the fact that it, wasn't right. And then he just brought the check back and then, took the meal off of my order. And I was like, okay, I mean, that's, thank you, I appreciate that. But I walked away feeling like something was missing. And it wasn't until I realized, oh, I didn't get some sense of regret or sorry from the, institution, the business. That leaves a little something to be desired. So if the bot can't do something, make sure that it's got a mechanism by which it can apologize. And this can be relative depending on what your legal department says, because for some companies, you don't want to necessarily take responsibility for absolutely everything. But some expression of apology or regret in the conversation when the bot isn't able to necessarily do something. And not just stopping there, but creating a path for follow-ups. So Salesforce has an annual conference every year called Dreamforce, and before the pandemic, it was conducted in person. And there'd be, I think, like something like 120,000 people who would just converge on San Francisco for the sake of this conference. And when you have that many people in one place, there's potentially going to be some service issues. That's also a lot of people to provide customer service for. And so one way of scaling that is using a chatbot. We had a Dreamforce chatbot whereby, yes, we could provide service to users. And if there was nothing that the bot could do, it at least it would apologize, yes, but it would, or convey some sense of regret. But then also give the user a path forward. You don't want to trap the user in the experience. So maybe you can email us, or here you can go to a retail store of ours in person, or give us a call. These are all ways that you can continue the conversation with the customer. All right, so if the bot doesn't understand something, this actually comes out of the box native to Einstein Bot Builder. There's a dialog called confused. And in that confused dialog, the bot just says, sorry, I don't quite understand. Would you like me to connect you to an agent? And then you can use rules and logic to transfer the user, and using Omnichannel and Service Cloud to transfer the user to an agent, a human agent. You can call the transfer to agent dialog. Once it's been confirmed, they're moving to an agent. Then you can essentially define it. Okay, looks like no one's here at the moment. You can create a no one is available dialog if there are no agents available. And this is the part where you can essentially convey to the user, all right, there's a path forward for you. All right, step number 9, bot gives and acknowledges gratitude. Thank you and you're welcome are very inherent pieces of conversation as well, especially for customer service. And the bot closes the conversation with goodbye. There has to be some end to the conversation in some way. You're very welcome. We have a you're welcome dialog that you can create. And this is very important to understand when the user is saying thank you. If the user says thank you and the bot says I can't understand you, that is extremely unnatural. And here are all the different ways you can say thank you to the Einstein bot. And then lastly, end chat. Bye, it's great chatting with you. And we wrap up the conversation. So there you have it. In 10 steps, we've achieved a natural, trustworthy bot chat. These are all available online. You can check it out at Salesforce. If you want to conduct research with Salesforce, you can use this QR code or this short link URL in order to connect with our research team if you have feedback or want to learn more. And thank you for attending.